Okay, Kishore has a...
There was one point he said that the juices of the fruit, I mean the vegetables get their juice from the moonshine, but we understand that the sun is the one which emits energy and gives life to everything and helps with the growth. So how does the moon work in giving the juices of the vegetables?
I'm not a real scientist in this regard, but certainly everything, the whole process of photosynthesis and growth is based upon both sunshine and oxygen, but still everything has its role, just like water obviously also has its role, wind has its role. Similarly, in terms of actually giving quality taste to these, the juice of life to all vegetables, Krishna says that actually comes also from the moonshine, from the moon. And, you know, just because today I saw some article about the First World War. In the First World War, the soldiers, at night, they would leave out their razors, because another phenomenon is if you leave, the moonshine sharpens objects. So they would leave their razors out at night, and that's how they would sharpen them, because when you're in the trenches, you don't just run to the shop and buy another razor blade. So that's how they would sharpen. Yes, sir.
Maharaj, you mentioned about the top point that scriptures tell us who real Father is. But we do get, when we discuss this with various people from various faiths, we get the answers such as their scriptures mention some other Father, and seemingly different Father. So how do we reconcile this basically? We understand Bhagavad Gita is the topmost, but how do we convince others that the scriptures are actually talking about the same Father?
Well, convincing is one thing, presenting is something else. Their epistemology is identical to ours. In terms of, they're also talking about scriptures being sacred, that's what it means, and it's beyond criticism, it's perfect, it's without fault, apurusheya. However, when they talk about God, generally, not generally, but their description of God is not very specific. It's extremely general. So they're not talking about, at least this is how we present when we're talking with authentic religious traditions, that we're not talking about different gods. We're all talking about the same God. But we may be talking in a different language, a different culture, a different type of worship, different rituals, and so on. And very often people get lost in these things instead of actually seeing what the real essential common truths and the common threads are behind it. So I know in my experience with interfaith meetings, which tend to be extremely unproductive and repetitive, but one of the phenomena is to actually always talk about what we have in common. Something that interfaith doesn't like to go into so much is what we don't have in common and how we're going to deal with those things, because that's also part of the reality. And just because we don't have things in common, we don't have to kill each other. We can discuss it in a different way. But ultimately, that's when interfaith discussions become a little productive, when we actually try to see, now how are we going to, all right, we're all saying it's all the same, and it's all the one, because we're talking about common things, but what about the differences? How are you going to resolve the differences? And how are you going to resolve the, and of course, Srila Prabhupada would present certain things. Yes, you've got the abridged dictionary, and then you've got the Oxford dictionary that's very extensive. You've got the grade school knowledge, and then you've got the PhD course knowledge. Are people willing to accept that? It depends on how open they actually are. And sometimes they do. We accepted it. I mean, we didn't come from a Hindu tradition, so we came from a Judeo-Christian tradition. So we were able to accept it. So people do accept it, but they really have to be really open for dialogue. And generally the idea is not to convince them. Purification of heart is what ultimately is going to convince them, but to actually have channels of communication.
Who are the infallible beings and how are they different from Krishna?
Infallible beings are the Krishna's eternal associates who never leave the spiritual world. So they're one category of infallible beings. Then there are different expansions of Krishna that are also infallible. For instance, there are, like Narada Muni is infallible. So those who make no mistakes, those who never misuse their free will. So there are and we're fallible because we're here in the world, we're identifying with something that we're not, and therefore we're always tending to make mistakes. But there are others who don't do that. Yes, they're the infallible beings.
Some examples of some fallible beings.
Say that again.
Some fallible beings who have attained perfection.
Fallible who attain some perfection. Yes, there are many examples. In other words, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, but basically that's all it's about. It shows two different classes. It shows the infallible ones, like the Pandavas, who are infallible, they're eternal associates. And then it talks about fallibles, who also, following their path of devotion, also attain perfection. So you've got, Bhagavatam, for instance, talks about Sivarama Muni, just comes to mind, who's a sage, who then commits offense to Garuda. He falls down from his position of austerity, he becomes a householder, has 50 wives, and ultimately both he and his wives then attain perfection. There are so many others, Prachini Varishat, and so scripture is full of different fallible entities who either consciously or sometimes even without making an effort attain perfection. For instance, there's mention in Shastra of how a hawk is chasing a dove around the temple, and when he catches him and kills him, but in the meantime the soul of the dove goes back to the spiritual world. Why? Because he circumambulated the temple. That's not generally how we attain perfection. We have to do sadhana, but it shows the example of how powerful the activities of bhakti can be. So many. And ultimately we're meant to be, we are the fallible, who are meant to come to the stage of being infallible. Yam gatvana nivartante tadama paramam bhavat. So Krishna says once the fallible go there, then they become infallible. Should we stop? It's getting to 9. I'll be here, and then we can also chat like that. So tomorrow is the last day, and tomorrow we'll go to our topic of bhakti, because Krishna says, well, if you understand I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then practice bhakti. But is bhakti really the only way to get to Krishna, and is it really the best way to get to Krishna? So let's see what the Bhagavad Gita says. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.